Okay, let's get going. Let's get underway. Today is the 102nd Security Thought Leadership webinar. And we've been here every Tuesday and Thursday, more or less, Tuesday and Thursday. Sometimes we varied it, nearly always at this time. But we have always, in these webinars, sought to debate a topic at the forefront of security interest and concern. And the idea of thought leadership in the next 45 minutes is not to try and solve all the problems, but to try and inspire thinking, ideas, critique what's going on, because that's the process when we can begin to get a better type of security tomorrow. And the topic today is one that has emerged from previous webinars, the role of security in protecting employees when out and about. And the sorts of issues that have been cropping up is when you've got an app which people can use to make them feel safer and secure and out and about, what happens if it fails? What happens if employees are not compliant with it? What about privacy issues? What's the role of security in all this? These are the sorts of points that we want to examine today. So in a minute, as many of you all know, I'm going to be introducing our panelists. I'm going to be inviting each of them to introduce themselves. And once they've done that, to make an opening statement. Once that's happened, we'll come to you, the audience, and invite you to take part, make your comments and address your questions to the panel. If you could, in doing that, could use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, and do get your questions in earlier, and I'll endeavour to get to you as soon as we've heard the opening statements. So without further ado then, let's go to our panel. And first of all, let's go to Gordon.
Hi there, I'm from South Africa, and I'm involved in the personal safety app space. So our background in it, I've been doing that since 2013, and we have clients that are both corporate security companies and governments. So it gives me a rounded basis for looking at the app space and how that's working for employees.
Thank you very much indeed, Gordon. So from Africa to Northern Europe. Heimo, let's go to you. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Heimo. I'm based out in Dubai, and I'm the regional head of security for Medtronic, medical technology company, and I also own and run a security awareness company called Same Solutions. On the Medtronic side, we've rolled out applications, technology across the globe. Some with varying degrees of success, and so I have sometimes a little bit reservations around that topic.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, this time we will go back to Europe, and it's Martin in the Netherlands.
Yes, hi. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm calling indeed from the east of the Netherlands, and I work for the Swedish company SafeSure, where we are involved with employee safety. And besides employee safety, I'm also a ACIS international member, and I'm a board member from the Dutch Travel Association for Travel Managers. So happy to join this discussion today.
Thank you very much indeed. So once again, as you can tell, an expert panel. Let's hear what they've got to say. I'm now going to ask each of them for their opening statements, their thoughts on these issues. As you're listening, do think about your questions. If you get them in on the question and answer button, as soon as we've heard from all three, I'll come to you. So Gordon, can we have your opening statement, please?
Yeah, sure. For me, I think when you raised this topic, the most important thing that stood out is that safety apps are a part of a much broader structure of security. In other words, it should be, our feeling is that people should be taking a layered approach, and safety apps are just one tool within that. And I think that as an industry where people are looking at personal safety apps, what frustrates me the most is that for many companies, it's simply a duty of care tick box. So they're saying, okay, we've got a safety app, therefore we've done everything that we need to do to look after our clients or our employees. And as far as they're concerned, that's good enough. And as here, anyway, the representative of this part of the industry, I think it's very important that people need to say, there needs to be risk assessments, there needs to be training. A safety app creates, I believe, a false sense of security for many people. As if we've got an app, we're good enough. There are plenty of situations where it's exactly the right product. It'll do exactly what it's meant to do. It'll provide security for somebody at the time that they need it. It'll get them the response. We'll know exactly where they are, and it's the perfect product. But there are situations where it's not the right product. Somewhere, for example, where reception is poor, somebody who hasn't been trained on how to do it, somebody who doesn't know what to do in a dangerous situation. So for me, more than anything else, it's not the silver bullet that is being sold as by many companies out there. It's simply part of a much bigger solution. And I think the more we can involve multiple role players in that, and in exactly the same way that we'd look at many other security products, it's simply a tool. And if it's not used properly, it's as bad as using any other tool that you don't know how to use. You train the people how to use it properly, and it's there. It's the right product for the right situation.
Gordon, thank you very much indeed. A very helpful opening statement, and one that sets a context and raises a number of questions. I'm sure we'll come back to those. Let's go then to Heimo. Heimo, can we have your opening statement, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will echo a lot what Gordon has said. So I will keep myself really short. But before I go into the technology aspect, I think the title is like today that people are more vulnerable, when they are out and about, as part of the current situation, and what has happened over the last year, and it's going to happen this year moving forward. And I tend to disagree with that. People aren't more vulnerable from a security perspective. I feel obviously there's always going to be isolated pockets where we see maybe increased crime, increased social unrest based on the economic impact that we've had, and we will always have that. But in general, over the last year, I think the overall security situation on many different aspects, from terrorism, crime, and everything else, I think feel like, at least from what I can see in my region, has improved in many countries. So I think there's no increased vulnerability per se, unless we look at a very particular area and a particular pocket. Nevertheless, technology and leveraging technology to improve security postures has always been a topic of interest, and both from a marketing perspective, as well as obviously from a corporate security perspective as well. And I would just echo what Gordon has said. It's a tool that you should have in your toolbox, and it's definitely technology can improve your processes, can improve your program, can make things easier, can automate things, can improve certain aspects of it. But if the program is broken underneath it, it's not the silver bullet. And many whether it's on the app front or whether it's on the general technology front, when we look at command center software or any other software that we might use, very often I see colleagues getting distracted with something I call the new sexy shiny toy syndrome, where it feels like this is something that we can buy and then it will solve all our problems. But then you run into all those challenges that Martin mentioned from a privacy perspective, but from a IT technology perspective, from a rollout perspective, from a utilization perspective, and I think that's where where a big of those challenges lie. So I think that would be it from my side, Martin.
Thank you very much indeed. Just a reminder to the audience, if you get your questions in using the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, as soon as we've heard from Martin, I'll come to you and we can start to debate your points. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Excellent. To scene-setting opening statements. Martin, can we have your opening statement, please?
Yes, of course. As you know, that I'm working for a Swedish technology company, so I will focus mainly on the technology. And one of the most important things is that, of course, there is no 100% solution to locate people. We all know that, but what we think is very important is that you must try to integrate as much as location possibilities within one platform as you can. As you know, there are several ways of integrating the location within a technology platform, such as travel bookings, GPS tracking, the place of work. Nowadays, that can also be your home office. Of course, normally people are working from their office, so you know exactly where they are. But due to COVID-19, a lot more people are working from home. So how are you going to cope with that? You can, of course, do manual reporting. You can use GPS locations or information from an access control system. Try to integrate as many of those location possibilities within platform. That's one of the key things. Of course, it will not solve all your problems because it's still it's a technology. It's not the complete solution, as Heimo and Gordon also already mentioned. But the fact is, you need to find the right balance between the privacy issues that are around. So people want to don't want to share everything. They are okay with it most of the time during work, but not always, also in their private time. So find the right balance between privacy and your duty of care requirements from the employer perspective. So, but if you look at the statement, it's really important that in a crisis situation, duty of care becomes more important than privacy. So when it really comes down to it, then privacy settings should be overruled and child technology should take over.
Martin, thank you very much indeed. And some very interesting points and some great things to build on there. Well, let's go to the questions because we've got a couple of questions in already. Please, if you, audience, can you get your questions in using the question answer button at the bottom of your screen? Let me come to you first, Gordon. It picks up on, leads on something that you were talking about, actually. Has any research been done to establish if staff with a security app feel more confident and therefore engage in more risky behaviours than they otherwise would do? So it's almost wondering whether that sense of security that people might feel may lead them to be negligent or even to be overconfident. Gordon, is that a risk?
Yeah, I'm not aware if any research has been done on it. I'd be very surprised, but I guess everything is research these days as well. What our experience has been is that there's no doubt that staff definitely feel more confident when they have a security app. And in many cases, they have a reason to feel more confident, but there are instances where it's a false confidence. We try as far as possible in the training and the rollout of the app to explain to them that it's not a force field around them. They're not going to press the button and the helicopter is going to appear out of nowhere and evacuate them out of there. And yet we do find that there are situations where people believe that, I mean, in South Africa, we're extremely fortunate. South Africa has a very large armed response network. And in our particular platform, we have a response time of about 3 to 5 minutes in any built-up area that somebody will be coming to assist them. But people have to be realistic, and we do find quite often that their expectations are unrealistic. If they're in the middle of nowhere and they press the button and they're expecting somebody to appear out of nowhere, it doesn't happen. And it does come, but yeah, I'm not aware of any research that's been done into it.
Just come to very quickly to Heimo too. I mean, in your sense, is that a worry? Do you think there is a danger that people, because of technology, can feel more safe and as a consequence engage in more risky behaviours? And Martin, I'll just get a comment from you after Heimo, if I might. Heimo first.
I mean, risk compensation, I think that's what it's called, has been researched a lot on the safety side. I'm not aware on the security side, in particular around apps, whether there's any particular research. I think that would be my short comment to that.
Yeah, I mean, so on the safety side though, what's the issue there? I mean, has the same issues emerged as people are engaging?
Well, there's off the top of my head, and this is back from the university days. I think it's something called risk compensation, and they've done some research where people on a motorbike, before they were wearing helmets, were driving X amount of miles per hour. Then seat belts and sorry, not seat belts over motorbikes, but helmets have become prescribed. And what they've realized that to compensate for the perceived additional safety, people are willing to take on additional more risk and just drive faster. I think that's the research that I'm aware of, but I'm not aware of research on the security side that would also confirm that. But I think it's to a certain degree, but I think it's a very small degree. You could apply that there as well.
Yeah. Okay. Mark, just get a comment from you if you want to just come in on this.
Yeah, I think that if you especially look at younger people, they are, of course, more faster adapted to using technology. So that helps. But if you look at some studies, you see that, people that are not used to fly frequently, they are a potential risk. But also those people that are really experienced travelers, that they actually face a risk as well, because they are so experienced that they don't see the actual threats anymore. So they are not on their toes, and so there are a potential risk as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for the question, Mike McBride. That was an interesting research engagement of an issue. Heimo, I'll come to you first on this from James Mackin. who says he's rolled out a safety app to employees utilizing a force push of the app to corporate mobile phones. What have you found to be the best way of to get employees to use the app? I mean, I think I'll just come to all of you on this, but that's a biggie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely big, and I think being able to force push that already solves like the first hurdle, which is getting the app onto the phone, and then it becomes a marketing communication challenge. I've seen, and even on our end, we've tried to get people to download applications, and we've had, maybe with some applications we had like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% utilization rate, which is too low to have a meaningful impact. So pushing it out there, I think it is already, if you can get that done, great, fantastic. But now it's a question like, do people know that they have it on the phone, or is it one of those other 99 apps that they don't know and they won't remember that they have it on their phone when they really, really need it. So then it becomes a real marketing and communication campaign question. In general, and this is from a behavior perspective or from a security awareness perspective, rather than if you can, and you have internal development capabilities, if you can integrate the same functionality, not in your own app, but can integrate it in something that's already useful, what people go to all the time anyways, like a travel booking app, it has an emergency booking, button or anything else that serves the same functionality, but it's not a native app to that cause, is always the preferred option. Because you want it to live somewhere. You need people to know that this exists and that it is out there, and for that people need to see it all the time, and so you need to place it somewhere where people would go automatically, where it's being used, where they can get useful information, and it's just an add-on there. But having a separate emergency button, I don't know how many apps I have on my phone, and where they all are, and I will not remember that, and no assumption that any of our employees will ever do this if I force push an app without even telling them.
Yeah, okay. So, Gordon, I'm going to bring you on this because obviously it's relevant to your life too. Important issue, this, about the process here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with Heimo to an extent that it does need to be perceived to be useful to the employee. And as an example, one of our clients in South Africa is one of the largest financial institutions. They have about 40,000 people, employees who are on the platform. And the way that we addressed it with them is they made it compulsory for everybody to download the app. So they knew it was on their phone. We handle the privacy issue by the fact that people will log in if they want to, not log in if they don't want to. But where we found the best adoption was by providing them with information. So we can, for example, geolocate notifications that are going out. So if it meant that in the morning, South Africa has, I suppose, like everywhere in the world, but we have lots of political problems, and we quite regularly, for example, will have protest action. So if in the morning we're able to push notification to using the app to the employees saying, avoid this area because there's a problem, or these roads are closed, find alternate routes, and it was relevant to those employees, it meant that they were engaging with the app on a more regular basis. Although they weren't necessarily seeing it as an emergency app, it became a useful part of their life. So I think exactly as Heimo said, it needs to be something that somebody is saying, well, it's useful to me having this. I can find an alternate route to get to work and a different way to do it. And I think to further answer the question how you get adoption on it, in our particular case, was the fact that the employees saw it as a 24-hour solution. So it wasn't a question of saying, I can only access this emergency response when I'm at work. It meant that I can access this when I'm commuting to and from work, which is quite often when crime was taking place against them anyway. And they can access it when they're going for a hike in the mountains on the weekend and they need somebody to come and help them if they've broken their leg or whatever it might be. So it's taking it beyond saying, well, this is a way that the employer can track where I am during my day, and saying it's the employer providing me with something that's useful to me in my personal capacity.
Okay, just one very quick question, Gordon. So the company said it was compulsory to download it. Can an employee refuse?
Yes, yeah. They made it part of it in terms of they made it compulsory, so that if there was ever an issue going forward, they were able to say from a liability point of view, they'd made it available to the employee. And as such, the employee couldn't then claim that, let's say, for example, they were traveling a work business and they were injured and they had no ability to call for help, that they weren't advised and aware of the app and they were supposed to have put it on their phone.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Couldn't, for example, force them to log in because then they'd be tracked.
No. Okay. That's fair enough. Okay. Martin, I'm going to just extend this a bit with a question from Kate King. I want you to just listen to this, Martin. She says, what are the key drivers behind employers wanting to intervene and provide protection while out and about? What are the most likely security incidents they're going to face? And just as a backup, are companies using this as an employee benefit for them and their family members? So let me come to Martin first, and I'll come to Heimo on the same question. Martin.
As an employee benefit, well, it's we see it more as a duty of care responsibility. Using an app has more and more advantages, because if you look at all kinds of location possibility that it has, and it will expand more and more, being able to get information on the situation where you are is very practical, but it also, when you're based on a location, is very good and important to know what is happening in the surroundings, so that you get informed about that is really important. So combining all kinds of technique into one platform is actually very important to get well informed about what it is. So the importance of the app, getting all that into one place is the most important to actually make sure that your employees are using that.
And in terms of security, though, I guess the point is, what's the key security requirement of that app? Presumably some sort of crisis response, I suppose. Yeah,
that's it. What is really important also when you look at the privacy issue is that an employee can determine whether they want to have their privacy settings on or off. So that's really important for many employees, because they are really afraid of the big brother effect. But what's really important of the duty of care responsibility as an employer is that whenever an incident takes place and you press that emergency button, then those privacy settings are overruled. So your GPS coordinates are sent to your employer, and the admin of the travel application can see exactly where you are, and then the medical assistance kicks in and try to solve the problem. That's still the main issue, to use the technology to communicate, of course, and also be able to get help when needed.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I mean, let me bring on this Kate's question about, is this being used as an employee benefit for them and family members? Is that one of the selling points for this?
I think security in general is a selling point, depending on obviously where you are. I mean, this is a selling point. It's become a table stake, I think. Almost. I mean, not almost. It is a table stake. Especially when you look at talent that you have around the globe. So definitely, I think it is a benefit. Yes, I think is the short answer to this. And to answer the second part of that question, really is like, why would you do this? It comes back to the very first statement that we've had. You really need to figure out, like, what's the risk exposure that you really have? What's the duty of care that you have? It's like, if us as part of their day-to-day jobs or the day-to-day routine, are people being put at additional risk? And if so, how can we mitigate that risk to an acceptable level? And what would what's common best practice? Because I think that's what's common best practice to mitigate foreseeable threats and hazards to your employees that they might have as part of their day-to-day job. And functions that, as you said, that Martin, that the apps can have is helping people avoid issues, which is this whole information base around that. And then incident response is obviously the second big aspect, especially if they utilize that. And that's on both sides. It's a communication tool for us as an organization that allows to communicate. If, for example, we don't have an emergency notification system, maybe the app or the applications get take some part of that, and then it becomes an assistance, support, almost. I think those are the key aspect that applications in whichever form once they're plugged into your overall system can take care of.
Okay, Gordon, I'm just going to ask you very quickly, just so I can ask you to be brief on this. Kate King's question is it an employee benefit? Just your thought for them and their family members? Yes or no, almost?
We are finding definitely. When we roll it out to a company, one of the very first questions we're asked is, can I also pass this on to my family members? So they're seeing it as an employee benefit. There are tax implications about whether we refer to it as an employee benefit, which is a different question completely. But we definitely see people seeing it as a benefit.
And it is, I suppose. And it can be used that way.
I mean, they use it as a benefit, definitely. Okay,
I'm going to come to Martin first. I'm going to come back to you on this one, Gordon. It's from Roger Warwick, who has the distinction, by the way, of being the 102nd Thought webinar today. He was the first panelist on the very first webinar. And Roger's question to you, Martin, is how do you propose training clients in setting up a travel security awareness process and not just learning on the app? And so I'll come to Martin Gordon for a comment on this too. Martin.
Of course, awareness in general is really important because, you know, as Heimo mentioned, the number of people that are actually using the app is a problem in general. So before you, let's say, onboard a new customer, it's really important that all people within the company get sort of trained on how to do it. So you can do it by providing e-learning on how the system needs to be done. And that is really important to get user experience by all the colleagues, but also to get a real, well adaptance of the app within your company. So that's a really key factor to get people aligned to use the app.
Okay, Gordon?
Yeah, I would agree with Martin completely. I think it comes about around the person themselves and what the risk to them is. So, for example, if you're rolling it out in a large corporation, for a lot of the people who are not at risk at all, there's a level of training that they would need in terms of, from our point of view, simply how to use the app, what to do in an emergency, which buttons to press. Whereas the executive who is at high risk should have a completely different level of training. So it comes back to, I think, my opening statement: risk assessment, determining what the likelihood is for that particular employee, and then training them appropriately.
Okay, I mean, there's a question here, actually, Heimo, if I could come to you on this, which Robert Stenhouse has had. So I'll come to Robert in a minute. It's from Neil Gammon, which says that there is evidence in recent reports by CIPD that many employees are experiencing app fatigue and maybe becoming more resistant to corporate apps. And I guess, where does that leave us? Is it true, Heimo, and where does that leave us? So I'll just get a quick comment from the other two after you on this.
I personally have it, absolutely. And when you look at app fatigue, definitely, I think that's a short answer to that. That's why I'm personally not 100% bought into the whole app idea. Apps have, I think, a really great place where there's a local solution. And I think that works really well in South Africa for Gordon, where he can really deliver benefits and value beyond the security function. So you talked about at the beginning about user information, traffic jams, and everything else, or security incident that might lead to other issues. And then you have the functionality on top of that. But it's really the underlying aspect of being useful on a day-to-day basis. I think that comes in. I'm not bought into an app that is of limited value across the year. And is only useful in an emergency situation. That's, I think, where, yes, fatigue definitely comes in, and it's a challenge that we have.
Yeah, I mean, Martin, let's get a comment from you on this. I mean, I would have thought that's the real, I mean, I've got apps that, I download and then I forget about, and then I have a cleaning session for every so often. And sometimes I forget what they are or why they're there. So I could easily, unfortunately, get rid of something that would be important. Martin, how do you get around? Do you find that to be an issue? How can we get around that?
Yeah, it is a problem that apps are, and of course, it's really important that the app that you are providing adds value to your daily business. So if you look at that's why I also started with the statement, is that you need to integrate as much as added value services within one platform. So you have everything in place. So not only information that you need to know about your country, where you're traveling, do you need a visa, yes or no? What are the requirements? Also about the COVID-19. If you have all the COVID-19 data also in one platform, then it's always good to have that information. You get pre-trip information also in the same platform. So there's a lot of things that you need in one place that can help you on a daily basis. As you mentioned, not only for you as a personal, as an employee of a company, but also for your private times, because this app also works when you have an accident in your free time, or if you're traveling with your family, then you can also use that app. If you go to an airport, you get gate changes within the app. So if you use your app quite frequently, when you're a frequent traveler, then it adds value, and therefore it's really important. And of course, you need to make sure that the app that you're using is valid, used on a regular basis.
Not for the first time, you see, in one of these webinars. We come back to this marketing, communication, engagement. It's really a fundamental part of security. Gordon, I'll tell you something that Robert Stenhouse wanted to raise. I would have raised this if he hadn't. And Gordon, it's this issue of connectivity, all right, about high-rise building, underground car parks, rural locations. He's the one use those. But the issue, Gordon, surely, is that what if you are making people feel safe and secure when they're out and about, and you get those sorts of problems?
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely an issue. I mean, in our particular case, you use as much technology as you can to address it. So, for example, location, we would be looking at GPS location, obviously, as first choice. But if we can't, we'd look at Wi-Fi location, even the old cell phone triangulation methods, and we'll try and find a reasonably accurate location that way. But if there's absolutely no signal, doesn't matter how good anybody's app is, underground car parks, for example, if there's no Wi-Fi, 6 stories of concrete above you, you're just not going to get a signal in there, and there's absolutely nothing you can do. And I agree that it can create a false sense of security. In our particular case, we address that by the app itself. If it's running in the background, we'll actually do a push notification saying that it has no signal. So the person is aware that they're out of range, they're not able to be contacted, that we wouldn't be able to assist them. But that depends on them actually looking at their phone rather than having the phone in the pocket and saying, well, it's there if I need it. They would have no awareness. So we are obviously still restrained by the technology and what's available out there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a question is, Gordon, and I'll come to Heimo in a second on this. I guess the question isn't, Gordon, are there legal implications for the company in this, or just the way it goes?
I think everybody's terms and conditions cover it quite carefully, particularly in our particular case when we're dealing with legal firms, financial institutions. They put together pages and pages of terms and conditions that they couldn't be held responsible. And obviously in our particular case as providers of the service, we can only work within what's available. Even you may be in an area that traditionally has very good mobile reception, and for whatever reason in South Africa, load shedding is our big problem. They switch the power off, therefore the towers won't work, there won't be signals. So there's a lot of that's beyond our control, and even more so from our clients' perspective, things that are beyond their control.
Okay, Heimo, this connectivity issue, I would imagine for safety and security concerns, that can be a bit of a belter of legal issues and duty of care concerns. Heimo?
Well, I think, it comes, I wouldn't personally, and, I'm not a lawyer, and, I'm a corporate security expert. So from my gut feeling perspective and from what I've seen, I think it comes back to expectation management. I think that's the most important one. When you roll this out, that you're clear about what certain limitations are, in particular about the response capabilities that come with the app and a potential emergency button. I think, there is, we're always talking about reasonable care, and we always talk about reasonable mitigation. And I think it's, unreasonable to assume that if we use an application and this says, you mentioned, 6-story or 6 levels down underground parking, that it will still work. So I don't personally, would see this as, it wouldn't concern me to that extent. But again, caveat this that I'm not a lawyer, and this is my own judgment around that.
Okay, Martin, I mean, a few questions. Kate King is one of them who's come back in. And it's something that we put in the initial outline. Is about this issue of the response, Martin. And I wonder what are the barriers to getting a universal response wherever you are? I mean, is that really a doable proposition? I mean, there's the rivalries between companies. There's the different deals they might want. I mean, Martin, how does that work? And I'll come to Gordon afterwards on this.
I think in general, of course, when you look at technology, you will always be depending on broadcast networks, the Wi-Fi. If you look at the situation in Mozambique right now, they just simply block everything. So as I said, technology is really good. It can add value to your safety in general, but in some cases it's just not effective enough, and you need other stuff like Heimo also mentioned. You need more in your toolbox to make you feel completely safe. So you need training. You need maybe also other stuff like satellite phones.
But Martin, the bit that I was going to, what I'm interested here is, but what you press the button, it's an emergency situation. How do you guarantee a response everywhere? Can you always guarantee there's going to be a response?
No.
Okay. But I mean, even if the technology works, I'm just saying, isn't there a reality that the security company might not be available? Or I mean, I'm just wondering how you can be sure.
What you can do, of course, is that what you want to know is that, of course, there's a lot of contracts in place. You can be a really big corporate company, and of course, if you pay a lot of money, you probably be first in line and be helped. So there's a lot of ways that you can actually try to make it as best as possible. So I would always suggest and advise that you have a dedicated phone line. So if you have medical assistant provider, you have a dedicated phone line that if you press the button, they know exactly for what company you are working for. They already receive your GPS position. So the way your technology is integrated with your medical assistant provider also is an important factor in the possibility that you get help or not. So there's a lot of things you can do to actually higher the chance of that you're getting helped or not.
Okay. Gordon, let me come to you on this. Same point. I mean, it's a really good one, isn't it? I can only imagine what it must be like in a big country where there's lots of different suppliers. How do you do it?
I mean, I'd agree with both Martin and Heimo. There's technology can only take you to a point. I mean, South Africa, we're both fortunate and unfortunate in that we have an extremely large armed response, security response network. What we've managed to achieve here is to actually network the security companies themselves. So we have technology now in their response vehicles in 250 of the security companies, so that we're able to see where the nearest responder is. And so when somebody raises an alert on our platform, we're actually automatically tech to tech able to send that alert through to the 5 nearest responders, who then get turn-by-turn direction on how to get to you. So apart from going into our control center, they are also automatically dispatched. So provided you're in an area with a reasonable response footprint, we know with pretty good certainty anyway that somebody's on their way to you, and we're able to see that in much the same way if you ordered an Uber, you can see the Uber coming towards you. But at the same time, the minute somebody's moving out of range completely, I mean, for example, we have clients in New Zealand, and they go down to South Island, New Zealand, you're not going to get cell phone signal. You're not going to get anybody anywhere near you who's able to respond. And Australian outback or whatever, there's always areas where there's nobody around.
I get that bit, Gordon. I'm interested in the bit where, just say it goes to the nearest 5 security companies. This sounds a fantastic system, actually. What's to stop each security company saying, well, I'll leave it to one of the others to respond?
Yeah.
Okay.
It can happen. Knowing the security companies, generally they're unlikely to do that because 9 out of 10 times, they're sitting under a tree waiting for something to happen. In the South African context, most of the security companies are linked to home alarm responders. And so they're spending most of their day doing nothing at all. So when they get an alert like ours coming through, it's mobile, it looks much more exciting, they've got something to go to. We've literally never had a problem with somebody saying, I don't want to take it. It's more a question of saying we don't want too many people rushing into the same alert at the same time.
Okay, very, very good. I'm just going to ask for quick responses now. Heimo, I've got a question here from Michael Gibbs, who says, who's really asking about whether COVID-19 rates, locations, hospital rates, safe hotels, restaurants, is that being built into the apps, Heimo? Is that a logical extension of the keep people safe when out and about?
I, will pass this on to Martin, who's an app builder, which I obviously, have no information about.
Martin. So thank you, Heimo. Let's bring you in on this one then.
Yeah, it's two things. That, of course, before you travel, you need to know what are the COVID-19 requirements for that country. So pre-trip, you can be informed about that. During trip, there's also the availability to look at that data when you know that. The third thing is that what you see more and more is that you actually get travel approval requests based upon COVID-19 situation. So based upon the COVID-19 situation in a country, companies want to see or try to determine whether it's safe to travel or not. So based upon the requirements and the situation in that country, you can actually try to determine whether you can travel or not. So that's baked within the app to provide that.
But more precisely though, okay, that's useful to know. But Michael Gibbs' question is about, but will you also find out about hospitalization rates, infection rates, safe hotels within that too? Is that part of what you get on an app or not?
So what we do have is that there is, of course, a company called Safe Hotels who actually rate the hotels, and we can actually, when you're out and about, we can have those locations within our app, so they can see if you need accommodation abroad, then you can actually see in our app whether it's a safe hotel or not. So whenever you book a hotel, from an employer perspective, you can decide whether your employees should choose a safe hotel or should choose a regular hotel. So in that case, COVID-19 information is available and also relates to the accommodation that you are using or not. Depending on the let's say the policy of the employer, you can use technology to get sort of awareness on the COVID-19 situation.
Okay, it sounds in a way like it obviously would be, but I mean that is a really helpful really helpful clarification. I mean, of course, it's an evolving concern. Okay, I'm just going to Gordon, very quick question here from Mike Cummins, and I suppose behind Mike Cummins' question, former panelist actually, Mike, and the question's about whether we use different strategies to support a number of employees attending a meeting away from the organization in a different state or country than just an app. In other words, the app, you've all been saying, is a part of a broader strategy. I guess the point is, Gordon, that the app could be a central part of it, I suppose. I mean, it's the extent to which that's going to help solve the problems. It seems a little miracle in one bell in terms of just follow the app, chaps, and you're going to be okay. It's a tempting proposition. Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd have to disagree with you on that, despite the fact that I'm a big fan of apps. It goes back to what a lot of this discussion has been. If they're in another country, the app allows us to communicate with them on a significant basis. So in other words, let's say there's an area that would be considered a no-go area. It's very easy to geofence that, and the app can say, you're going into an area that you shouldn't be, this is risky, we suggest that you turn around and head back to the hotel. So we can build a lot of that technology in, but at the same time, if there's a core team going to this country, they should have a safety briefing before they leave their home office and be told, when you're in this country, these are the norms. This is what you should look out for. This is the response that you can suggest. So that falls beyond what we would be doing from an app supplier point of view, but very much into the risk assessment side that says, when you go to this country, this is how you should be behaving and what watching out for.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin, Gordon, Heimo. Really appreciate it. We've run out of time. Still more questions to go. I guess that's the sign of a good discussion when there's more questions and you haven't been able to get through them all. Thank you very much indeed for that. And thank you, the audience, for your questions. Just a few points I want to make. One for the first time. Just to say that the OSPA entries are open in South Africa, Kenya, Romania, and the United States. But in South Africa, they close on the 7th of April. So do please get your entries in as soon as you can for the OSPAs. Many of you will know that the cyber OSPAs are coming. One international award ceremony with all the associations in the world, cyber associations in the world are joining in. Please do let us know if one of your cyber association, your country is not engaged yet. We'd love to welcome them. This is a worldwide initiative. Same principles of the OSPAs apply to cyber. Let us know, please. The cyberospas.com. Big deal, that one. We're back on Tuesday when the webinar will be about protecting the national infrastructure. Are we sure we have not been distracted? And I've got 3 panelists once again, all going to be talking about this from different angles. I hope you'll be able to join me then. I know for some parts of the world, this is an Easter break, a bank holiday. If it is, I hope you enjoy it. But wherever you are in the world, I hope you'll join us on Tuesday. Until then, stay safe.